Everybody, welcome. Today we're going to be covering how to make sure that you can feel certain, confident, and in control much more than you currently are. So if you're dealing with anxiety that's making you constantly stress out, worry about things that are outside of your control, consistently feel disempowered, feel like there are things that you just can't do, feel like there are things that you always want to do, but it doesn't seem like it's possible. If you're feeling uncertain, lack of confidence, out of control, this is definitely going to be one for you. Go ahead, please, in the comments. Let me know, can you hear me? Can I just get see a yes in the comments? If you can hear me, it'd be great. We've had some tech issues in the past, so I just want to make sure that that's clear. Also, I'm going to be answering any questions for those of you who have them a little bit later on, okay? Thanks, Big Ben. I appreciate the shout out in the comments. Thank you. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter live as well, I believe, although sometimes I say that and it goes in a different direction, so we'll see how that goes. But I really want to just kind of share with you guys one singular concept and framework that I think is incredibly powerful and helpful. Thanks for you guys joining in. Paige, Charlotte, I see you in the comments. That's great to see you guys. Okay, so what is the singular concept that can help you? Okay, if you're feeling a lack of confidence, you're feeling a lack of certainty, you're feeling a lack of control in your life, I really think this will change your life. And I really believe it because this is something I've been workshopping with my clients. And it was just like one of those metaphors. This came up several months ago. I was on a session with somebody, I don't even remember who it was, but it just kind of clicked for me. Sometimes this happens. And that's why I try to always share it with you guys sort of publicly when these really powerful concepts emerge, because that's how we create a massive impact. If I can give you something that's got leverage, if I can give you a tool or a framework that I have seen verifiably is working for other people in a closed setting in a client relationship, then maybe I can distill it, or at least the essence of it, and hopefully you'll get something out of it that you can apply in your life. So I encourage you to pay close attention to this and put yourself in the shoes of a recipient of this framework, and I think that you'll learn something. But basically, in my line of work, working with people with anxiety, depression, different mental health issues, when I encounter people, they are in a headspace where they believe that they have less options than they actually do. They believe that they have less options than I can see that they have. And one of the things you may have heard me say before is that we feel anxiety in direct proportion to how few choices we convince ourselves that we have. And every person who's dealing with anxiety has concocted some type of a story, some type of a set of beliefs about what they can do and what they can't do. And there's all sorts of different variations of those stories. But in essence, what I have learned causes people to do this is a process of what I call giving their power away. So what I want to share with you is a little metaphor that I came up with a client, and I think this will help you too. So my client was feeling very, very disempowered. They kept referring to things that had happened in their past. They kept referring to their relationship with their parents. They kept referring to their spouse. And they kept talking about how all of these different things cause them anxiety, right? And so this is the metaphor I came up with. I said, look, imagine that you go into a casino floor, and those of you who have been in a casino, you know what I'm talking about. Most casinos, as soon as you walk in, there's all of these different, games that you can play. There's the card game section, there's the slot machines, there's, all these different games. But imagine you enter into a casino, and when you're in the casino, you're given a bucket, right? And this isn't how real casinos work, but, you're given a bucket, and that bucket represents the entirety of the coins, the entirety of the money, that you have to use while you're there in the casino. And let's just say it's 100 coins, okay? And you can go do slots, you can go play this game over here, you can do blackjack, you can do poker, you can give them to other people, you could donate them, you could keep them if you want, right? You could leave the casino and go invest it in an IRA, okay? Or so whatever would be safer for you to do, but it's yours. Those are your 100 coins. You're not given any more coins than that. You can generate more coins by what you choose to do or don't do, but that's all you get. Okay, now what most people do, if you haven't figured it out already, the casino is a metaphor for life, okay? But here's what most people do. They go into the casino of life and they have their coins, and then what they end up doing, without intending to, is they end up giving their coins away piece by piece. So there will be some type of painful event that occurs at some point in their life, like for instance in their childhood, maybe they get bullied at school. And so then all of a sudden they start to feel less than, they start to feel not good enough. They start to maybe believe some of these things that that bully has said to them at school. And so without intending to, what they've done is they've taken some of their coins. The coins are just a metaphor for your personal power. Okay? If you guys can put in the comments the phrase personal power, please put that in the comments. That's what I want you to remember from today. This whole concept around anxiety really revolves around your relationship with your personal power. If you're feeling anxiety, it's because you believe you have less power than you do. And I'm going to share with you why you came to that conclusion, why it feels that that's very true to you, and I'm going to share with you what to do instead. Okay, so you go through life, and all of a sudden, certain painful things occur for you. Okay, so you get bullied. Maybe you had a parent that was very critical of you. It felt like no matter what you did, it was never enough. Maybe you ended up having a bad breakup with a partner in middle school or high school, and you felt that you were never going to be able to find somebody better than that. Maybe you went through something really traumatic, like a car accident or some physical abuse, or, God forbid, like some sexual abuse. I know many of you guys are survivors of these things. And maybe ever since that traumatic event, it felt like you had less power over your life. You felt less in control. You felt less certain. You felt less confident. Okay? Let me know in the comments, can you guys relate to this? Do you feel like as over the course of your life, you felt less powerful over time, particularly in response to painful or traumatic events? Can any of you guys relate to this? Please let me know. This is usually what happens, and there's a very particular reason why. What ends up happening is we encounter either people who, hurt us, whether they intend to or they don't, right, but it cause us pain, or we experience an event that might cause us pain, or we might make a mistake. We might, through our own actions, cause us pain. Like maybe we get drunk and we get a DUI, and then the DUI gets on our record, and then we lose our job, right? Something like that. We make a mistake, and all of a sudden now, right, we've caused ourselves pain. But the thing that we do with our personal power is we give our personal power away to these three sources, either to other people, to events, or to previous actions of ourself. So let me explain a little bit. So what most people do, and this is maybe, let me meet you where you're at. Right now, if you're feeling a lack of confidence, a lack of control, a lack of certainty, here's what's happening. It's like you are looking down at your bucket, and your bucket seems mostly empty. It seems like you don't have many choices, maybe. It seems like other people hold the power. So, for instance, if you feel very reactive to your parents, if you have if you have a lot of intrusive thoughts about your parents and your childhood and what your mom or dad or stepdad or stepmom should have done differently and how they need to treat you a certain way and that whole thing, what you've done without intending to is you've taken a big chunk of your coins, a big chunk of your power, and you've given it to your parents. And you've said, no, my parents hold this power over me. Okay? And chances are you probably made that decision like a long time ago, years or decades ago, when they did hold legitimate power over you as a parent does over a young child. But you are probably, if you're watching this, an adult child of adult parents. And so you probably psychologically still believe, whether you language it this way to yourself or not, that they hold some type of power over you. Now, you may not call it they hold power over you. What you may call it is, I really need my parents' approval, or why can't my dad love me and accept me the way I am? Or why does my mom have to speak to me that way? Or why does such and such have to always be so negative all the time? But if you've created we call it a rule with our clients, okay? If you've created a set of rules about how other people have to be in order for you to feel happy and to feel peace of mind, then what you've done is you've given some of your power away to this other person. You've basically said, here mom, here dad, here bully from high school, here old gym teacher, whatever, I need you to do X, Y, and Z in order for me to feel whole. I need you to change how you talk to me. Text me more, call me more, validate me more, understand me more, whatever. People have different rules, right? Not speak to me this particular way. But those are kind of the big ones. And so what you did is you made believe that your self-worth is contingent on what another human being does or doesn't do, which is a total fiction. It's a fabrication of the mind. Okay, let me give you a couple real world examples because this may be tough for you to relate to. Let's say you grew up and you had a parent that was really, really difficult to please. This is a common thing. This is kind of what I dealt with. I know a lot of you guys dealt with this. If you dealt with a parent that was really tough to please, you did probably what all kids do, which is you felt an insatiable urge to try to make sure that your parent did accept you so that they did love you. This is a survival mechanism we all have, is to be who we think our parents want us to be at a young age. And the reason why that's such a huge ingrained psychological urge is because it's evolutionary. We rely on our parents putting our needs as their children above their own needs, otherwise known as love. So we rely on their love for survival. So it is an evolutionary trait for us to try to adapt our personality to be who we think we have to be in order to get the love and acceptance of our parents. And so what we tend to do at a young age is we realize our parents are difficult to please, for example, and we go, well, by golly, I'm still going to try to please them. And so we try to bring home the straight A's, or we pick up trash outside in the front yard, or we go and volunteer at the school, or we try to be good boys or girls when we're at church, or whatever it is. And you try to fit into this role of who you think you have to be. But then when you become an adult, you start having all these anxieties. You start having these anxieties, well, not necessarily once you become an adult, they usually start at teenage years, right? But you start having these anxieties, and the anxieties occur because you're trying to fit yourself into this role that you think you have to be in order to be, quote, good enough. Okay, can any of you guys relate to this? Do any of you feel like, as a kid, you created a set of beliefs about who you have to be based off of who you were reinforced for being or who you were punished for being? You created rules for yourself of, okay, well, I can do this because dad likes it when I do that, but I can't do this because dad or mom doesn't like it when I do that. And what you ended up doing is you started cutting out options for yourself. You started to say, nope, I can't be this, like, I can't be loud, or I can't be adventurous, or I've got to be safe, or I've got to be diligent, or I've got to be hardworking, or I've got to be whatever it is, okay? But you came up with a story. You came up with a story about who you have to be. And you're probably, a lot of you guys are still chasing after your parents' approval now. Even if you're 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, you might still be chasing after your dad's approval. I've seen it where you're still chasing after your dad or mom's approval, even when your dad or mom is dead. You're still trying to chase after this role that you feel like they wanted you to live into. But here's the thing, guys. This is the key thing. You came up with the beliefs about who you have to be in order to be, quote, good enough. In other words, your mind unintentionally created a fabrication. It created a delusion. It created an assumption of I have to be X, Y, and Z, or else I am not good enough. That's a fabrication. And what that does is it's like you took a big giant chunk of those coins I was talking about and you gave it to your parents. And you said, okay, parents, I am not the one in charge of my own self-worth. I am not the one who validates whether I am good enough. I don't give myself permission to be happy. Only once I check these boxes that I believe you have set for me, then I want you to give me those coins back. But here's the problem with that. The problem with that is, well, twofold. Number one, in many cases, the parent didn't even tell you, hey, Susie, you got to be this, and you got to do this, and you got to do that. Like, they didn't lay out a contract for you in most cases. You picked up little tiny signals of pain or pleasure, and you made beliefs about who you have to be, what box you have to live in. Very often, if you went to your parents and you said, hey, mom or dad, why did you convince me I have to be this particular person? They'd be like, what are you talking about? We just want you to do what makes you happy. So very often we psychologically create the box that we live in, and it wasn't even someone imposing it onto us. Sometimes, however, another person is imposing it onto us. They tell you, like, you're never going to be pretty enough. You're never going to be thin enough. You're never going to get a husband if you keep eating like that. You're never going to get a wife if you don't get a job, etc. They create a set of rules, a set of expectations that you then feel like you have to live into. The problem is when you keep pursuing the completion of that role, what you're doing is you're giving power away. That's a common example. Now, I really went deep on the whole parent thing, but let me give you some more granular examples. I had a guy once who felt really alone and very depressed because he felt very alone. I started to ask him questions about his relationships, and he ended up telling me that he had about half a dozen people that he had relationships with at work. He had about half a dozen people he kept in touch with since high school. He had about half a dozen people he kept in touch with since college. So I was like, dude, you have like 3 times more friends than I do. Why are you feeling so lonely when I'm not feeling lonely? And he said, well, no one cares about me. I said, what do you mean no one cares about you? And I asked him a key question that I want you guys to reflect on. Like, think about that big desire that you're really craving to feel on a regular basis. For many people, it's wanting to feel certain, wanting to feel in control, wanting to feel confident, wanting to feel validated, wanting to feel heard, wanting to feel accepted, wanting to feel loved, wanting to feel respected, okay? Something in that neighborhood. And I said, well, look, what has to happen for you to really feel that people care about you? That's what you're craving most. You really want to feel that people care about you. You're depressed because you believe no one cares about you. What would have to happen for you to feel that people care about you? And he said, well, they would have to text me back. And I said, okay, gotcha. How quickly? He said, well, within an hour. I said, okay. And then I said, so as long as they reply to you, you feel that they care about you. He's like, no. They need to really text me. Like, they need to like give me like 2 or 3 paragraphs. Like, don't just give me like a 1 or 2 sentence response. I was like, okay, that's interesting. And so then we talked about like a particular friend of his. And I was like, look, who's a person in your life that you would think they don't care about you, but they would disagree? And he's like, oh yeah, this guy from work. I'm like, okay, cool. Tell me about this guy from work. He's like, well, yeah, I text him all the time and he never texts me back. I was like, okay, gotcha. But does he ever call you? And he's like, well, yeah, he calls me like twice a week, but I want him to text me. That's how I know that someone cares about me. And I said, gotcha. Well, it's weird because you're saying that the only way people show you that they care about you is if they text you. I interpret that very differently. If someone texts me and they never call me, I don't think they really care about me, because it's like, why would you text me? You'd only text me because you don't really care to take the time to talk to me. So anyway, this whole conversation basically helped him realize it wasn't that no one cared about him. It was that he developed a series of specific rules about what caring had to look like. Does that make sense to you guys? It wasn't that no one cared. It wasn't that no one loved him. It's that he had a very specific definition about what care and love looked like that nobody could reasonably accommodate, because it was so specific to him. And only people who had communication preferences like him were ever gonna feel like that. So what that ended up making my client feel was out of control, a lack of confidence, a lack of certainty, because he constantly felt in reaction to other people. He was anxious and worried about whether they would text him or whether they wouldn't. Why weren't they texting him? All these intrusive thoughts. He took some of his coins and gave it to other people. He said, the only way I get to feel like I'm cared about is if other people text me back in this particular way. He took his coins and he gave it to other people. And then here's what happens, guys. Here's what happens. When you give your coins away, when you give your personal power away to other people, when you create rules and requirements about what other people have to do in order for you to feel good enough, here's what ends up happening. You've given your coins away. Imagine you're in this casino. You gave all your coins away. Then you look down at your bucket and you go, holy shit, my bucket is empty. I can't do anything now. I don't have choices. I can't go bet or save or invest my money anymore because it's gone. You mother effers are holding it. And you look out at your friends and your parents and the bully from high school and the guy from work and whomever it is, and you go, hey, you're holding my coins. You're holding my power. Give it back. And the thing is, they didn't take it from you. You unconsciously gave it to them. You came up with a set of beliefs that says they've got to do X, Y, or Z in order to make you feel good enough, in order to make you feel validated. Is this resonating with you guys at all? Can you put yes in the comments, please? Can I get some feedback from you guys? Let me see what you're thinking and feeling on this. And what I'd love to hear in the comments too, by the way, is what power have you given away? Who have you given power to and how? And let me provide a simple little framework here that'll help you distill this very clearly, because I want to make sure you get a really, really good takeaway from this. There are 3 main ways we give our power away. 3 main ways we give our power away, and as we give our power away, we become less certain, less confident, less in control. These are the three big ones. This comes from Dr. Albert Ellis, okay? Dr. Albert Ellis was the guy who came up with CBT, but like real CBT, not the stuff that is taught today where they call it CBT and it's not CBT. Right now, every single like talk therapist that's just out there billing you for an hour and like telling you you should go for a walk and you should exercise and you should think positively and try meditation. People think that that's what CBT is. That's not what CBT is. Real CBT is a very constructive, proactive, problem-solving set of tools that originated decades ago. And here's what Dr. Albert Ellis figured out. What he figured out is that for a human being to feel pain, right? Call it depression, call it sadness, call it anxiety, call it worry, okay, whatever. To feel pain, a human being can only feel pain when they indulge in three different types of delusions, three different types of thoughts. Okay, the first one is called I forget his exact word, but I always remember it as the delusion of others. The delusion of others. So go ahead in the chat, put others. Okay, the delusion of others. So the delusion of others is basically this. It is other people must do what I expect or else I can't stand it. That's what it is. Maybe put that in the comments, somebody, please, for the group. Other people must do what I expect or else I can't stand it. That is the delusion of others. Okay, now there's a million different variations of this, right? Other people have to text me back as quickly as I want. Other people have to text me back as much as I want. Other people have to call me. Other people have to apologize. Other people have to never use this tone of voice. Other people have to never use this in this word. People have to, there has to be no war going on in the world ever. There has to be nothing on the news going on that irritates me. My boss has to always be in a good mood, etc., 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 etc. There's a million different delusions of others, right? Other people must do what I expect or else I can't stand it. Most people who've got anxiety going on, they've got a series of beliefs that slip into this category. And you can see how you're giving your power away, right? Either a coin here, a coin here, a coin here, or you're giving a huge mound of coins to like one particular person. But that is a big way we give our power away, is we believe that unless other people do what we expect, we just can't function. We just can't stand it. And by the way, another way, here's how I'd really want you to think about it. The delusion is other people must do what I expect or else I am not good enough. That's really what the delusion is. Other people must do what I expect or else I'm not good enough. Okay, that's number one. The second delusion is the delusion of events. Okay, put events in the chat. The delusion of events. And here's the delusion of events. Things must go how I expect or else I can't stand it. Things must go how I expect or else I can't stand it. Okay, so a classic delusion of events would be when people blame their childhood for their mental health here and now. Your cells in your body replace themselves every 7 years. Do you know that? There is not a single cell in your body, in your bones, in your muscle tissue. There's not a single cell that is the same as 7 years ago, let alone when you were a child. So you are literally on, like, depending on your age, you're not on like TIE 1.0, you're on TIE 5.0, okay, or whatever. Your body is constantly in a state of flux. There's not a single cell of your body that is the same from when you got abused, right? There's not a single part of you that is the same. The only thing that is the same are the beliefs. The only thing that is the same are the expectations, the thoughts. And if you change the thoughts, then you'll change just as much as your body has changed. So when we blame the fact that we got laid off 3 years ago, or the fact that our parents got divorced, or the fact that, and by the way, I'm not ignoring that these things are real and that they are painful and that they have impact. So I'm not blaming the victim here in any way. I want to be very, very clear. I'm not saying either, hey, just suck it up, okay? What I'm saying is I want to give you a tool so you can process this, so you can take your power back. That's what I really want you to remember. This is the key thing I want you to tattoo on your forehead out of this experience, out of this session today. Take your power back. Someone please put that in the chat. Take your power back. But how do you take your power back? The only way you take your power back is you figure out where you put your power in the first place. You got to figure out, where did I disperse these coins to, right? And so for a lot of people, it's some type of an event. I think you guys get the picture. But basically the story that we come up with is, because XYZ happened, now I can't X. right? So people will be like, "Oh, no, no, I'm not an outgoing person. Because I got stage fright in a school play when I was 12 years old, and now I've never been able to talk to people." Bullshit. Bullshit. The reason why you're not talking to people is because you keep telling yourself that you can't talk to people, right? Your power, the thing that has control over you is not the event from the past. The thing that has control over you is the story that you have created about the event from the past. This is how people are able to go through physical abuse, sexual abuse, even the most horrific things. I've worked with people who have literally been kidnapped, for God's sake, right? Like had a gun held to their head for over a week. And they are out there living perfectly happy, content, mentally healthy lives. And they're not delusional people. They're literally living happy, healthy lives now. And the reason why is they changed the meaning that they gave that old story. Their old story may have been, because this happened, I am screwed up forever. I'm broken. I have less choices. No one will love me. No one will hire me. I'll never have a functional relationship because this thing happened over here. And it's just bullshit. The reality is, when we believe the old belief, it feels comforting, because if we hold on to the old belief, we don't have to face our greatest fears, which is that we have to grow, we have to evolve, we have to develop, we have to learn new skills, we have to face our fears. So clinging to a delusion of events is convenient, because if we blame an event or we blame other people for holding on to our power, then we just look down at our empty bucket and go, well, I'd really love to go improve my life, but I just can't because I don't have the power. That's what we like to do because that's more comforting. It makes us feel better about ourselves to justify that somebody took something from us, as opposed to we unknowingly gave our power away and we're refusing to take it back. And that's the truth. And I'm telling you this like I would tell like my younger sister who I care about lovingly, like someone who I care about deeply and lovingly who needs to hear the truth. I'm just saying my younger sister as a random example. She's doing just fine. But I'm just saying, so I'm speaking to you like a brother or a sister because I want you to get this. I really, really want you to get that you believing that somebody or something or some event has power over you still is the very thing keeping you feeling out of control, a lack of certain, and a lack of confidence. That's the big thing. Now, what is the third big delusion? The third big delusion is the delusion of self. And the delusion of self goes like this. Because I did X, I am X identity. So let me give you a practical example. Because I made a mistake, I am a failure. That would be the simple example. So you distort one action or one event or one choice into your whole identity. You generalize it. Okay, and that is giving your power away. But what you're giving your power away to, interestingly, is a decision of yourself. You're saying, okay, well, I made this mistake yesterday, but that means I'm a total failure. See how you're giving your power away? You're basically saying, no, I don't have agency. I don't have a responsibility. I don't have the resources to make my life how I really want to make it until this thing that's outside of my control changes somehow. And that's where anxiety comes from. Imagine a situation where all of those coins are taken from you or you've given them away, and now you have to operate in this casino. You have to wander around and somehow try to make something for yourself. Meanwhile, you're looking down at an empty bucket. That is a recipe for anxiety, where you're constantly stressing out about what people are doing with your coins. Like, oh, please don't spend it over there. Don't do that. Don't do this. And that's what people get, is they get very reactive about other people's tone of voice or whether they're texting back or etc. All those different things. Or they get depressed. They walk around the casino of life looking down at their empty bucket and they go, well, I've got no power. I've got no choices. I've got no options because of this thing that happened over here or because of what this person said to me over here. Okay? But what you're forgetting is that the event, the action, the mistake, what the person said or did is not the thing that has the power. What has the power is the meaning that you give it. The meaning that you give it. I work with survivors of abuse every single day of my life. For the past 7 years, I've helped people through these experiences. And what I've learned is that healing occurs when you change the story about the abuse. And not a second before and not a second after. The healing occurs when you change the story around the abuse. When you have a story about the abuse that says, I am disempowered, I have less choices, I am broken, That is what creates ongoing perpetual trauma. That's what creates a lack of healing. What creates healing, what creates confidence, what creates a sense of certainty, what creates a sense of growth, what creates a sense of confidence is saying, yes, that shitty thing happened, and yes, that person did that thing to me, and I would never condone it, and that person should face the consequences, whether that be legal or whatever. However, I am not going to make believe that I am less powerful today. I am less in charge and in control of where my life heads tomorrow because of what happened yesterday. That's the key. So you've got to, that's what taking the power back is. Taking the power back is not ignoring it. That's not what I'm condoning in whatsoever, any kind of way. I'm not saying let's ignore it or brush it under the rug. I'm saying, yeah, let's acknowledge it. Let's figure out what beliefs you created as a result of that painful experience, and then let's learn how to take that power back. Okay, I hope this is making sense to you guys. So here's some practical things you can do to take your power back. Okay, here's, if you want to do a little assignment, here's what I would recommend you do. Take 5 minutes. And this is very much like the type of thing I would assign a client to do. The very first thing I would have you do is, if you're having a tough time pinpointing where you've given your power, just think of what triggers you. Okay? Whatever, if something is triggering you, that is a signal that you've given your power to something. Okay? And it can be, again, the 3 big ones are either a behavior of somebody else, right? Otherwise, others is what we call that. An event, right? Something from the past. Or a third, some type of action of your own. Okay? Those would be the 3 big things where you have come up with some type of story or belief that you have less choices. So think about where you are most reactive. If you're having trouble figuring out where you are most reactive, just think about what your mind thinks about all the time. If your mind is constantly looking for whether other people approve of you, it's pretty clear where you've put the power. You've put the power in your social group or your friend group or your coworkers or whatever it is. Okay, if your mind is constantly concerned with trying to become super, super successful, then you've put your power in this idea of, I've got to be successful. I need people to give me money or status or promotions, and then I'll feel good enough. Then I'll give myself permission to feel happy. If what makes you constantly reactive and anxious is like say like your health, like if you have health anxiety, then what you've given your power away to is the idea of needing to be totally certain all of the time. Remember I said the delusion of circumstances is things must go how I expect or else I can't stand it. Well, a version of that would be my body needs to give me no irregular sensations whatsoever, or else I'm going to imagine that I've got cancer and I've got this, weird disease. So for those of you guys who are dealing with health anxiety, you're giving your power away to your body, basically, right? Believing that your body has to be a certain way and feel a certain way always, forever, all the time, or else you just can't stand it. So sometimes it shows up in sneaky little ways like that. Another example would be like for any of you guys dealing with like OCD type tendencies, like the stove, you got to check the stove 6 times or whatever. What you're giving your power away to is this concept of total certainty. So you're basically believing I must be 100% certain of what's going to happen next, or else I can't stand it. And that's just not true. So if you're looking to feel more certain, get comfortable with uncertainty. If you want to feel more confident, get comfortable doing things even when you don't feel confident. If you want to feel more in control, accept the things that are outside of your control. Okay? Because here's the real reality. You all got tuned into this thinking I was going to give you here's the exact 12-step process to be completely certain and feel in control. Because you're wanting to be certain about how to be certain. But here's the reality. Certainty, okay, and confidence and in control are just synonyms for certainty. That's really what you want. You want to feel certainty. Certainty is what's called a paradoxical feeling. Paradoxical meaning the more you chase it, the less you feel it. So when you make believe I have to be 100% certain about how the meeting is going to go to feel comfortable giving the presentation at work, you are giving your power away to something that is never going to be able to give it back to you. You're giving your power away to the universe saying, hey, universe, can you somehow make me feel 100% certain? Can you remove all of my doubts whatsoever about giving this presentation? Can you help me see into the future and know with absolute certainty what's going to happen and that it's going to go well and perfectly and comfortable? And of course, the universe does not work that way. So that's basically just like you throwing your coins all over the casino floor and saying, nope, I'm not going to feel good enough until I feel completely certain. That's the perfect recipe for feeling uncertain. The recipe for feeling certain is to say, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen in the meeting. They may like it, they may not like it. They may react this way, they may react that way, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. I don't need them to react a certain way in order for me to feel good enough about myself. I can operate in an environment of uncertainty. Okay? Maybe you guys should put that in the chat real quick. Write that down. I can operate in an environment of uncertainty. That's the core belief that you need if you want to feel certain. The most certain people on the planet are not people who've got every single variable pinned down and there's no unanswered questions. The most certain people in the world, the most confident people, the people who feel the most in control, are people who are totally cool being uncertain. They're totally cool knowing that they're not going to feel totally confident about everything. They're totally cool knowing there's plenty they're not in control of. And by saying, I don't need to be totally in control, oddly, you're taking your power back. That's the weird, interesting thing, because you're saying, yeah, I don't need every single circumstance to go like this. I don't need all of these 1,000 boxes outside of myself to be checked in order for me to feel comfortable moving forward. I'm taking the power back and saying, regardless of how people react to me, how it goes, if I make a mistake, I'll be fine. I will maintain my power. I will maintain my response ability, my ability to respond. I will maintain my agency. Okay? So anyway, back to practical steps. Here's what you want to do. Figure out where you've given your power away. It's usually others, events, or self, like past events of yourself. And then number 2 is I want you to figure out what was the belief that you came up with? And I gave you the template in this video. So what is your specific belief that you came up with that's causing you to feel disempowered in that area? Okay? And then the third and final step that I would want you to do is basically just write down the opposite of that limiting belief. Write down the opposite of it. So if your old limiting belief was, I'm never going to be able to have a good relationship with a man because of how my father treated me. The opposite of that would be, I can have an exceptional relationship with a man because my dad showed me how a man should not treat a woman. Okay? So and by the way, if you really want to accelerate healing from past trauma, here's a freaking amazing shortcut. Figure out what the trauma gave you as an unexpected gift. And I guarantee you the trauma gave you an unexpected gift. Whatever the thing is that you've been blaming the most has actually given you an unexpected benefit, but you probably haven't seen it because you're too busy blaming it. I'll give you one example on this and then I'll conclude for the day. I was working with a client recently and he dealt with some abuse. Let's just leave it at that. He dealt with some childhood abuse that was pretty substantial. And he was in his later midlife by the time I was working with him, and he had come up with this story that he was just not good enough because of the abuse. And he came up with this idea that he was broken, he was always going to be depressed, he was just never going to feel good enough. And so I asked him a question he had never asked himself, and I said, what were the unexpected gifts that occurred as a result of the trauma? What were the unexpected gifts that occurred as a result of the trauma? If someone can put that in the chat, I'd greatly appreciate it. What are the unexpected gifts that occurred as a result of the trauma? Now, his mind did what your mind will probably do, which is immediately spit out, well, I don't know, there was no good thing. And I said, no, tell me, what are the unexpected gifts? And here's the trick. I asked him, what kind of person did you become? What kind of character traits did you develop that were positive as a result of the trauma? And he said, well, I certainly became more empathetic. I certainly became more caring. I certainly became more compassionate. And I said, gotcha. What have been the benefits of those character traits throughout your life? And come to find out, his whole career, he was a healer in his own way in his career. And he had developed a whole career where he had spent decades serving other people and improving their life. He had impacted thousands of people's lives positively because he was traumatized. Because he went through this trauma, he became more empathetic and compassionate to other people who were experiencing pain. So he developed those character traits. And then I said, now, by the way, don't you have a really great family with a couple kids that, and the family life is really great? He said, yeah. And I said, why do you think your family life is so great? And he said, well, because I know what exactly it was like growing up in an environment without love in the household. And I said, great. So if we're going to blame all of these bad actors in your childhood for all the screwed up childhood that you had, if we're going to blame them for all of that, we ought to also blame them for the beautiful children, beautiful wife, and beautiful family that you have now. Because if you wouldn't have grown up in an environment where you learned how painful it was to not have love in a household, you would have not become an ounce of the father that you have become for your own children. And he started to cry because he realized that that was exactly the truth. And this, by the way, guys, is one of the big things I always want my clients to remember. I always come back to this list of 5 things I always want them to remember 10 years from now. And one of those things is every single thing that happens in your life has an unexpected benefit if you know where to look. There is a resource. There is a way it has strengthened you. It has made you powerful. And once you ask yourself that question, because so-and-so treated me such and such way, what was the unexpected benefit that came from that? Because I made that mistake way back when, what is the unexpected asset that came from that? If you ask that, you're not just taking the power back, you're gaining power as a result of the previous pain. You're not just saying, okay, fine, yeah, such and such happened and it was so painful, but I'm not going to beat myself up about that anymore. I'm going to take my power back. That's great. That's a really good start. What's even better, though, is to go, yeah, wait a minute. How am I actually a better person because that occurred? Or how could I choose to be a better person because I can extract a lesson from that situation, from the past? So I would really highly recommend you take 10 or 15 minutes and go through that process. This is one of the processes. This is a shortened version of it, but this is one of the processes that I teach my clients. We call it blaming effectively. Making sure that if you're going to blame this past event or this person or this mistake that you made, or blaming yourself even, if you're going to blame for all the negative bad stuff, you better make sure you blame for the good stuff that came as a result too. And that is a really powerful way to feel very, very powerful and to feel far more certain. And after you do this enough times, after you eat shit in your life and then you go, well, you know what, I got through that and I came out stronger on the other side. After you do that enough times and you learn to look for the lesson, you develop a capacity where you're like, I can handle whatever. I don't give a shit. If it happens the way I want it to, great. But if it doesn't happen how I want it to happen, then that's fine too. Okay? And that's what creates long-term certainty, long-term feeling of being in control. That's what makes you feel in control of your life. When you realize you don't need anything from anybody or anyone, or certainly anything from the past, to be a certain way in order for you to give yourself permission to feel good enough. Bullshit. Once you say, I am the one who's going to be the source of my own happiness, I'm going to be the one that decides to give myself love instead of waiting for other people to give it to me in the very particular, specific way I've always wanted it. Once you decide to no longer withhold your sense of self-worth from yourself, your entire freaking life changes. It's like a brand new birthday. You're the one in charge of your life again. Okay? And that's what's possible for you. But to do it, you got to ask yourself the tough questions. Right? You either got to figure out a way to do that yourself or get some mentorship to make that happen. Okay? So that's it for today. We've closed down enrollment for clients for the month of June. However, if you do want to be on our wait list, we'll probably open up enrollment in a couple of weeks. Go ahead and put wait list in the comments if you want to be on the wait list. We'll go ahead and add that to you, and you will be first notified once we have slots open for a client if you want us to work with you to handle all this stuff, and we can get this job done for you. Thanks for the comments. Thanks. We'll be here every Thursday at 6 p.m. I do a live like this, so I'll see you guys next week. Take care for now. Bye.